So now let's talk about lofting with centerline and other options. So here I'll explain this using the 3D model of a gramophone. So I've got all of these profiles which I'll use to create a loft, and I have this line which is exactly passing through the center of all of these profiles. Now it can be little off centric, as you can see. In this case it's not exactly at the center, so you just don't need to be kind of exact here. You don't need to just make a line which passes exactly through the center of these profiles. It should just roughly trace a center line. So that's the idea here. Alright, now I'll go to Loft, and here I'll start by selecting the first profile, which is this one. Now after selecting this profile, go to the next and just select all the profiles that create this loft. And here we are. So we have all of these profiles selected. Now in this case, as you can see, it is tracing a pretty good profile of this gramophone here. But before we finish this up, we just need to make some changes. Well, the first thing is these connectors. So right now all of these connectors are exactly where they should be, but if you want to kind of twist this profile a little bit, just move it around and you'll get a different kind of shape here. So you can just make all of these interesting shapes simply by moving these connectors. In this case, I'll move it back to this point. It makes more sense to just keep it here. Now the next thing is our center line. We want this gramophone to follow this exact center line. As you can see right here, it is not exactly following the center line. So we just need to ensure that this part remains completely vertical. So we will go to this option, center line, and I'll hide all the other panels here, and I'll select this center line. And as soon as you make the selection, you'll notice that SolidWorks will now follow this loft along this center line. So it will just follow the center line here. Alright, now if you want to control this curve even more, then you can use other options which are available here. So in this case, I will go to this start end constraints here, and here you can select the starting and end constraints again. So here maybe start with this one, start constraint, which will constrain the way this curve starts here. So I'll just go to this one, and here I'll select normal to profile, and that's going to create a normal profile here. So this lofting section is normal to this profile which is just created here. So that's the normal to profile at the starting point. Of course we don't want it, but just in case you want to make a completely different kind of profile, you can do this. Also you can add some weight to this profile here. So right now it is influencing it really very little, but if you wanted to influence it much more, then you can add a value here. So this value can be anything between 0.1 to 10, and it's a relative value, it's not an absolute value. So here you can just add a larger number, kind of like this, and as you can see, the larger this number is, more will be the influence of this normal along this lofted profile. So now our loft looks kind of very different. Now in a similar way, you can also change this normal section here. So right now it's not exactly normal. As you can see, it is following this center line quite closely, but still it's not completely normal. So if you want to make this section also completely normal, you can go to end constraint and apply normal to profile. And now it's closely normal to this cross section. Again, you can add the degree of influence here. So you can just add a big number to make it normal to this cross section as closely as possible. But at some point it kind of makes this kind of weird artifact. So that's not the value which I want. So I'll just make it 2. And with that, we can see that it is influencing now up to this point where we can now see this kind of sharp corner. So this is how you can basically control the profiles. Alright, now in this case, this doesn't make sense. So I'll just change it back to none. For the end constraint, maybe for the starting constraint, you can keep it with a smaller value of, let's say, 1 unit here. Alright. Now the next thing is thin profile. Of course we want it thin. We just want a hollow gramophone here. It's solid, and that doesn't make any sense in this case. So to create a thin feature, simply go to this option here, thin feature, check this box, and now you can apply the thickness. Right now 1 mm thickness is applied here, but if you want it thicker, you can add 2 or whatever value you want here. Also this thickness is currently applied in only one direction. So just zoom into this area, and you can see that it is applying it outside. This is sketch. So this is the sketch. It is applying thickness outside. If however you want to change it, just click, and now the thickness will be applied inside the sketch. Now in this case, this is actually failing. So I'll just decrease the thickness to 0.5, Here at a thickness of 0.5, here we have it. So as you can see right now, the thickness is applied inside. So in this case, I don't want it inside. I just want to apply thickness outside. So I'll just change it back to 1, and also I'll reverse the direction. Now you can also apply thickness on both the sides. So select mid plane and the thickness will be applied on both the sides. That I don't want for this case. So I'll leave this one direction selected and I'll apply thickness only outside. Now when you are satisfied with the final shape, just click OK. And here we are. Here we have got the final shape of this gramophone.